Hello, my name is Joanne Seward, and I'm the Technical Services Librarian at the Oak Creek Public Library. Thank you for joining me for the first video in this series, Intermediate Microsoft Office. Today's topic is Word. Microsoft Word originally began as a fairly simple text editor. However, over time, Word has offered many further editing options to allow for more complex types of documents, such as reports, brochures, flyers, stationery, and etc. Features included are advanced document formatting options, as well as powerful editing and revising tools. So the objectives, this is what we're going to focus on specifically in this video. We're going to use find and replace text, use the Thesaurus and Format Painter. We're going to create a flyer by using WordArt, online pictures, text boxes, and shapes. We're going to create and edit a table. And lastly, we're going to format the page layout by using bullets and numbers, adding columns and inserting headers/footers, as well as page numbers. All right, so for a quick review, let's just talk about the parts of the window. Just as a reminder, this is the ribbon, so the entire section across the top right here. We have the tabs, File, Home, Insert, Design, all the way over to View. All of these group similar functions and actions together. Inside of the ribbon itself, underneath the tabs, we have the groups. So the group name is at the bottom of the ribbon. So the very first group in Home is Clipboard. So we cut, copy, paste, and Format Painter is part of the Clipboard group. We have Font, Paragraph, Styles, and Editing. So all of these groups just group similar actions together. That's the general idea. We have the rulers / the guidelines, which give us an idea of where we are if we start typing on the actual page. It gives us an idea of how far we are, 1 inch over from the margin, etc. Same thing on the left-hand side. At the very bottom, we have the status bar. So that's this gray skinny bar going all the way across. The main thing in here is how many pages we have, as well as how many words. And then it allows us to zoom in or out to be able to see our document a little bit better. So if you click on the plus sign, zooms in, click on the minus sign, it'll zoom out. So you can have it set whatever you want in the zoom. Just as a reminder, this doesn't print this way. It's just how you're viewing it on the screen at that moment. So the article that we're using today for this first exercise is this Albert Einstein article that we have already pre-created. So the first exercise that we're going to do is use find and replace. So in the editing group of the Home tab, there's find right here. You can also use the keyboard shortcut Control F. So Control plus the letter F will bring up the find navigation pane as well. So I'm just going to go ahead and click on find. And I'm going to type in the word that I am looking for. In this case, I'm going to do Einstein. So notice how I misspelled this because I actually misspelled it the same way throughout this entire article. So you can see there are 35 matching results. So there are 35 times where I misspelled Einstein in this exact instance, in that exact way. So I don't want you to think that this is like spell check. That's not how this works. It will only search for the word as you exactly typed it. So if I misspelled Einstein, but if in a different way, like I forgot the second E or something, it wouldn't show up then in this search because I'm searching for Einstein with this exact spelling, okay? So, but in this case, I misspelled Einstein incorrectly the same way all throughout the document. And so now I need to replace it with the correct spelling. So I'm going to go back to the editing group and click on replace. And the find what has Einstein in it because that's what we were just searching for. Replace with, we want to do Einstein spelled correctly. When you're doing the find, it doesn't matter if you're using lowercase or uppercase letters or a mix, it will find it no matter what. However, with the replace with, you want to make sure that you have it capitalized or not as is appropriate because it will take it exactly how you type it in this box. So I'm going to click on replace all. And there we go, it's all done. We made 35 replacements. So swapped out all of the Einsteins for Einsteins. So if I click OK, and then I can click on close to get out of it. And I'm going to click on the X to close out of the navigation pane. And you can see all of the Einsteins now in here are correctly spelled. You can search for words like parts of words. So like how there's German right here. I could search for the word man and it would pop up German. Or human or woman, etc. So you can do parts of words as well. You can do numbers. I could search for 1905 and it would take me to this, so on and so forth. Excuse me. So the next thing that we're going to use is the thesaurus. So I'm going to do find again, except this time I'm going to do the Control F. And there's the navigation pane. It remembers the last word that we typed in there, which was Einstein. So I'm just going to use backspace to get rid of it. And I'm going to type, look for the word published. So I'm just going to type that in there. Oops, I spelled correctly. Okay, so there are 3 matches for the word published. In a 3-page document, having 3 words that are one word that is duplicated 3 times, that's not a big deal. If you did it like 20 times in 3 pages, then you definitely probably would want to use the thesaurus to kind of change it up so you're not using the same word over and over and over again. So we're just going to pretend that we use this way more than we originally intended. So on this right-hand side, you can see where the word is highlighted in yellow on the actual document. So all we're going to do is right-click on the word published and then go to synonyms. And you can see it actually gives you already some suggestions. So if there were ones in here that you liked, you could just click on it and it would swap out the word and get rid of the word published. If there isn't one that you like in here, you could click on thesaurus. It'll bring up the thesaurus pane on this right-hand side and it gives you additional synonyms that you can use. So the only thing that's a little bit weird about this is your natural inclination would probably be like, oh, I want distributed, and to click on it. Well, watch what happens when I click on the word distributed. Notice up here now, instead of published, it says distributed, and then it's giving me synonyms for the word distributed. And over here on the actual document, the word published is still published. So you don't want to just click on the word because you will get down this rabbit hole of just constantly clicking on one and finding another synonym, and clicking on one and finding another synonym, clicking on one, finding another synonym, and so on and so on and so forth. So you don't want to do that. What you want to do instead is you want to move your mouse onto the one that you're interested in, and then to the right, there's this little tiny down arrow that pops up. We want to click on there, and then you want to choose Insert. Insert will actually take it and put it into the actual document. So you can see there's the word distributed. So it was published and now distributed. So you just have to be a little bit careful when you're using the thesaurus if you're using it in this manner. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the X to close out of the thesaurus and click on the X to close out of the find the navigation pane. Okay, so that is find and replace and the thesaurus. Now we're going to talk about Format Painter. So Format Painter is super helpful, especially in articles like this where there are multiple titles. So this Einstein moves to the United States, Einstein's later life, if I go back up from Zurich to Berlin, et cetera, et cetera. Because maybe you're looking at this and you're like, yeah, I really want to change the font on all of these titles so that they all match still, but they're a little bit different, a little bit nicer looking, okay? So rather than, if you weren't using Format Painter, you would have to select the first title, make all of the changes to the font, and then select the next title, make all of the changes to the font. Select the next title, make all of the changes to the font. For Format Painter, that kind of takes away all of that extra work, essentially. So let's go ahead and do it, and I'll just give you, and I'll just show it to you. So I'm going to select Albert Einstein because in order to make any changes to the font, since I already typed it, I need to click, hold, and drag and select it. So I'm going to make some changes. Let's change the font size to 16. Right now it's 18, and I'm going to change it to 16 in the font group. And I'm going to make it underlined. Click on this U with the line underneath it. There we go, it's underlined. And I'm going to change the font color. So this A with the red underneath it. If I click on that A though, it's going to turn red, which is not what I want. So I got to click on the down arrow and let's do green instead. There we go. Okay. So I made all of the changes that I want to make to this specific title. And now I want to apply those same changes to the rest of the titles in the article. So what we're going to do is go to the clipboard group right here in the home tab. And you want to double click on Format Painter. So 1, 2. It's kind of like, the best way that I can describe it is like caps lock. When you do the double click, it will turn on Format Painter and you can use it multiple times. If you only do it once, if you only click on Format Painter once, you can only apply it to one title, so one selection, and that's it, okay? So the more that you use Format Painter, though, the more that you'll get used to how it works. Just, it's one of those things that it takes a little bit of time to get used to. So you can see my cursor right now has changed. It's not just an I-beam anymore. There's a little paintbrush. That's how I know that Format Painter is turned on. So very carefully, I'm going to click, hold, and drag and select this title and then let go. Ta-da! There we go, changed. So I'm going to scroll down and do the next one. Boom. Scroll down, do the next one, and so on for the rest of the titles. There we go. And you can see just how easy this is. So you want to be careful though, because if you accidentally select text that you didn't mean to select, like let's say I accidentally did some chunk of this paragraph right here, like this, and then I let go. Now you can see this entire thing has changed, which is not what we want. So you need to make sure to do undo if that's the case. A lot of times that will turn the Format Painter off. So you can see my cursor doesn't have that little paintbrush. So you may have to select the text that's already changed to whatever font that you want, and then double click on Format Painter to turn it back on. And then you can continue selecting whatever text that you want to select. So you can see my little paintbrush is right there, okay? So the last kind of the most important thing with the Format Painter is after you're done using it, just like Caps Lock, you need to remember to turn it off. Because like I said, anything that you select is going to be changed to the same font that you did. So to turn it off, all you have to do is click on Format Painter once. And you can see now it's not selected anymore. It's not kind of dark or gray. And if I move my cursor over here, there is no little paintbrush, okay? So the Format Painter is just super, super helpful. Because a lot of times I will choose, you know, some color in here, like some shade of blue, and then I will go and I'll go and select the next title and I'll make all the changes, and then I go to select a shade of blue and I'm like, wait, did I select that shade of blue or that shade of blue? Or was it the shade of blue over here or this one? I can just never ever remember. Or the same thing with the size. Was it size 16 or was it 18 or was it 14? So the Format Painter option really helps kind of take away all of that kind of questioning, and it also speeds up the whole process essentially, okay? All right, so that's all we're gonna do with the Einstein article. What we're gonna do now is create a new document. The keyboard shortcut for a new document is Control and N, like for new. So I'm gonna hold down Control and tap the letter N and then let go. And you can see, there we go, I have a brand new document right here. Make sure you don't hold down N for too long. If you hold it down for too long, then you're gonna have a ton of new documents, which is not what you want, just believe me. So what we're gonna do now for this next exercise is we are actually going to be creating a flyer, specifically a church bake sale flyer. So I will just say my one caveat about flyers in Word is typically you probably don't want to do a flyer in Word. It's much easier to do flyers in Publisher, which you'll see when if you're still with me for week 4 for the Publisher class. So because Word itself is not really made for that, it's made just for text essentially. So we can do it, it's just not the easiest thing to kind of manipulate, which you'll see as we go about our exercise. So with that being said though, I understand that some people only have access to Microsoft Word and not to Publisher, etc. So we're just going to talk about how to create a flyer. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to use WordArt to create a title. So typically that's what WordArt is for. So I'm going to click on Insert, and in the text group right here is WordArt. So WordArt just gives, like it says, a little artistic flair to our document. So it gives it a little bit more personality, and you can kind of manipulate it a bit more than you would if you just typed in regular text. So I'm going to click on the WordArt, and it gives me all these different capital A's. These are the different types that we can have. So I'm going to choose kind of this gold looking one right here. So it pops up with a text box that says your text here. I don't want to click in here because everything is already highlighted. I just want to start typing. So I'm going to type in, the text is church bake sale, okay? All right, so what we want to do now is we want to format our actual WordArt title a little bit more. So what I want to do is select all of this text in order to make the changes. And I can do that a multitude of ways. I can do click, hold, and drag. I could do Control A. I can triple click. So let's go ahead and triple click just for fun. 1, 2, 3. There we go. So it selected the entire text, in this case, the entire title. So I'm going to go to this Drawing Tools Format Contextual tab. And I'm going to go to the WordArt Styles group right here. And this first A, if I hover on it, is the text fill. The next A is the text outline. So that's the outline color of kind of these bubble letters. So I'm going to click on the down arrow and I'm going to choose whatever color that I want. In this case, let's do black. Sure, why not? Because it stands out. Okay. Just as a little additional tip, if you don't like how thick it is or it's too thin and you can't really see it, if you go back and go to weight, that's where you can change the thickness of the line. You don't want to go too crazy because then you won't even be able to see the inside color. So let's say I wanted to do 1 point instead, so you can see it a little bit more. Okay, so that's where you can change it, is in that text outline right there. All right, so now we're going to change, if I wanted to change the inside of color, that's of the bubbles letters, that would be the text fill, but we're just going to leave it as gold. The next thing we're going to change is this text effects. If I click on here, it gives us a lot of different choices. We have shadow, reflection, glow, bevel, the 3D rotation, transform. We have all of these different types that you can kind of mess around with. So like I said, WordArt gives you a lot more manipulability, if that's a word, than you would get with just traditional text. So I'm going to go to the transform so that I can kind of give it this funny kind of warp, you know, that I want to choose. So I'm going to choose, let's do this inflate right here. And you can see it kind of spreads it out a little bit more. So it's skinnier on the edges and then thick in the middle. If you don't like it, you can always go back and go to transform and then choose a different one. You can definitely do that, okay? All right, so now let's go back to the text effects and let's give it a shadow of some kind. So I'm going to click on shadow. So there are outer shadows, and you can kind of see how it's moving the shadow around a little bit, right? And then there are inner shadows, so that's showing on the inside of the bubble letters. I personally don't find the inner to be that dramatic of a change, so I usually do the outer. So let's, hey, I wanted it to go offset to the top right. Okay, sure. Click on it. There we go. Now it's applied. So you can see it's giving a shadow that's over to the top and to the right of all of the letters. Okay, so the last thing that we're going to do with our WordArt title is we're going to change the positioning of this. So one way that we can do that is in the arrange group, there is position. So right now it's set to this inline with text, but I want to change it so that it's this position in top center with square text wrapping. So it's going to put it right at the very top in the middle. So I'm going to click on there and you can see it just moved my church bake sale right over to the top of the page in the middle. All right. So that is my finished WordArt title. So now what I want to do is insert a text box just to kind of make it easier and insert text. Because with a flyer, you always need the who, what, where, why, all of that kind of stuff. So I'm going to go to the Insert tab again. And in the text group, we have text box right here. I'm going to click on text box and I'm going to choose Draw Text Box. And you can see my cursor has changed into this plus sign. So I'm going to go just kind of underneath church bake sale and I'm going to draw, click, hold, and drag. And you can see as I'm dragging down, it's making my text box larger and larger. And I can drag it down a bit more. Oh, maybe it's too far. I'm going to go up a little bit. There we go. Okay. Let me zoom out a little bit using this minus sign so you can see it a little bit better. There we go. Okay. And you can always, if this isn't the correct size, you can always resize it by using these corner move handles, which we may have to do in a moment. So what we're going to do now is we are going to type in our text. So just give me a moment to type it all in. I'm just pressing enter in between each of the lines of text just to give it a little bit of extra space for readability. All right. Okay, so there is all of our text in our text box. So the next thing that we need to do is format our text and format the text box, because obviously the font right now is super tiny, right? If this was a flyer, you'd be looking at this like, somebody doesn't know what they're doing because this is so tiny on here. So in order to make the changes to the font, just like anything else, I need to select all of the text. So I'm going to do Control A is the easiest way. That'll select all of the text inside of this text box. And I'm going to go in the font group right here, and I'm going to change the size. Right now is 11. Once again, for a flyer, that's super tiny. We're going to click on the down arrow and we're going to choose 28. There we go. Now you can actually kind of see it a little bit. I want to make this italicized, so I'm going to click on this I. You can see now it's all in italics. And then I'm going to change the line and paragraph spacing, which is the amount of space that's in between each of these lines. So if I go to the paragraph group and click on this line and paragraph spacing with the arrows pointing up and down, and I want to choose 1.5 just so that it gives it a little bit of extra space. Once again, it's all about readability. Okay, and the last thing we're going to do to format the font is to make it centered. Once again, in the paragraph group, we have these sets of dashed lines. Right now it's set to align left. We want to choose center. So if I click on center. All right, and you can see it centered it vertically in our text box. Okay, so now we're going to actually format the text box itself. So we're going to go back to this Drawing Tools Format Contextual tab. Give me just one moment. There we go. Okay, so now we're going to go to the Shape Styles group, because this is kind of a shape, right? It's a box is the idea. So what we want to do is at the very bottom right corner of the Shape Styles group, there's this little tiny down arrow. You might not have noticed this before, but some of the groups have these little arrows. See, right there, text doesn't, arrange doesn't, but size does. All of this gives you kind of advanced choices that you can choose from. So I'm going to click on the little arrow by the Shape Styles to get these additional options. So I'm going to choose, right now I want to change the line option. So the fill would be the inside color and etc. of this actual text box. The line is the outside, this kind of black line that's going around the outside of it right now. So I want to change this. Let's do right now the compound type. So right now it's just set to simple, which just means that it's one single line. But let's say that I wanted to do something fancy like triple. If I click on triple, oh, look how much it's changed. No, not at all. The reason that you can't see it is because the width you need to change. So you see how the width is set to 0.5? We need to make that wider in order to be able to actually see those three lines. Right now it's just so skinny you can't see it. So I'm going to use the up arrow until I get to 5.5. Notice how it changes as I go. Oops, there we go. So now hopefully you should kind of be able to see that there are three lines in there. And if that doesn't work for you, you can keep on going until you can see it even better. There we go. Okay. So, but I'm going to keep it at 5.5. All right. So now that I changed this outside line, and that's all I want to do with the text box at this moment, I can click on the X to close out of this format shape. And let's say we need to resize it a little bit more. So maybe I want to bring it up so that it's right against the text, bring your friends. So I'm going to use this bottom move handle, click, hold, and drag, bring it up a little bit. And there we go. If I click off to the side, there you go. So you can see there are three lines and there is all of our text right there. Okay. All right. So the next thing that we need to do is insert an online picture. It's not a flyer unless you have a picture, right? Okay, so what we need to do is notice where your flashing cursor is. This is important when you're in Word because wherever your flashing cursor is, wherever you go to insert something, so if you insert a table, a picture, a shape, a word art, whatever it is, it will go exactly where your flashing cursor is. So you just want to kind of be aware of where your cursor is when you are inserting this. You don't want it in your text box. If it's in your text box, then it's going to insert the picture into the text box and it gets all weird. So just trust me, you want to be outside of the text box if you're inserting anything typically. So I'm going to go to the Insert tab and I'm going to choose, let's do online pictures. So these are pictures that are from websites. And I'm going to search for church. I want a picture of a church and then press enter. All right. Keep in mind that there's this yellow bar for the Creative Commons license. Just as a reminder, these the results that are tagged with Creative Commons license means that you can use those without being sued. That's good. You can do show all results and it'll show you everything that is on every single website that has the tag church. But some of those you legally won't have the right to actually use. So just keep that in mind. So I'm going to find a church that I like. Let's say I like this one. I'm going to click on it and it puts a little check mark in there. So I know that that's going to be the one it's inserting. And then I'm going to click on insert. And you can see it put it right there. It's kind of hidden behind the text box right now. We're going to fix that in just a little bit. So the first thing that we're going to do is we want to change the size of this. I can use these corner move handles to change the size of it, or in the picture tools format contextual tab right here that just popped up, in the size group, let's say I wanted to change the height. I know that I want it 2 inches. So if I click on the down arrow until I get to 2, and there it is. Okay, and you can see the height and the width changed proportionally. If you don't want it to do that, just as an FYI, you would click on this little more arrow at the bottom, and where it says lock aspect ratio, you want to click on that to uncheck it. If you uncheck this, then you can change the height to whatever you want and the width to whatever you want, and they won't change relative to each other. So in this case, I'm just going to do cancel because I don't want to do that. Okay. So the very, very important thing when it comes to Word and being able to move pictures, because if I wanted to move this right now, if I click, hold, and drag and try to move it, it's not really going to do it. Or in this case, it moved it to a place that I didn't want it to, and it's pushing all of the text out of the way. Okay, so that's because, once again, Word is not really made for pictures. It's made for text. So I need to force it to allow me to be able to move this picture where I want to move it. So in order to do that, I have to go to the Arrange group right here. And I'm going to click on Wrap Text. Right now it's set to inline with text. That's why when I moved it, it just moved all of this text over to the side. Instead, I want to choose Square. Notice how it pops it towards the front. And what I can do is I can click, hold, and drag, and I can move this wherever I want to move it. And if I let go, there it is, there it is, there it is. I can move it wherever I want to move it within the margin lines. It won't really let me go above or below the top or bottom margin line. So in this case, I want to drag it down so that it's underneath my text box. Let's go like right there-ish. And there we go. Okay. So if you don't do this wrap text and square, then it is very, very tricky to be able to move this around. You're just going to have to trust me on that. All right, the last thing we're going to do is kind of mess with the coloring a little bit. So in the adjust group, I'm going to choose color. And we have these different categories like saturation, tone, recolor. So if I wanted my church building to be only blue or just green or etc. I like doing saturation because you can see it kind of brightens it a little bit. See how it's kind of like grayish. And if I go on here, it's more yellowish, I guess is the best way I can say it. So I'm going to choose the saturation 400% to kind of tweak my little photo. Okay. All right. So the last piece that we're going to add to this flyer is shapes. So I'm going to go ahead and click off to the side once again so that I get my flashing cursor, because if I'm inserting something, I want to know where my cursor is, and because that's where whatever I insert is going to go. Okay, so in this case, we're going to go to insert for our shapes, And in the illustration group, there is shapes right here. And there are tons of different shapes that you can use. For flyers, it may be particularly helpful to use these arrows right here. So you can say, you know, church bake sale this way, or etc. So they have lots of different categories. So in this case, I'm just going to use kind of a fun one. Let's do the star. So you can see there's all different types of stars and banners in here. So I'm going to do this 5-point star. Okay, I take it back. It didn't insert it because with the shapes, just like with the text box, you have to kind of draw it yourself. So I get the same black plus sign that I got when I had the text box. And what I need to do is click, hold, and drag in order to create my star. So I'm just going to start up here at the top kind of left and click and drag. And you can see as I'm dragging it, it is stretching out my star. There we go. And then let go. If you don't like the way that it looks, you can always use the corner move handles and you stretch it out any way that you so choose. So let's put it back here. And I'm going to go to the middle and I can kind of drag it over a little bit if it's not in the correct placement. So you can do all of these kind of finagly kind of things as well. Okay. So now that I've inserted my shape, I am going to format it a little bit more. So in this Drawing Tools Format Contextual tab, we're going to the Shape Styles group and we're going to click on this More arrow again. All right, so once again, I'm going to mess around with the line. So that was that outside part of the text box. And the line for the star is going to be the outside line of the actual star. So not the inside blue color, the outside line color. Okay. So in this case, I want to change it to black because I want it to match my text box. So where it says color right here in this little bucket, if I click on there and click on black, you can see, there we go, it just changed it. So now you can actually see the outside line color. I'm going to change the width again to 5.5, once again to match my text box, just to be consistent. And I'm going to change the compound type to triple, once again, just to match what I have for my text box, okay? All right, and let's say I wanted to change that inside fill color. If I go to fill instead of line and click on the color bucket, and let's say I want gold. That's kind of gold. Technically it says orange, but it looks goldish to me. So there you go. Okay. All right. So now I've done everything that I want to do with as far as formatting with the shape. So I can click on the X to close out of the Format Shape navigation pane. And what I want to do now, lastly, is put a star over here on the right-hand side. And it would make sense that I want a copy of this exact same star. So rather than going to insert, choosing shape, choosing my star, drawing it, doing all the changes again, we're just going to make life easier and do copy and paste. I'm sorry, not cut. So I'm going to make sure my star is selected by clicking on it. I'm going to do the keyboard shortcut Control-C for copy. And then the keyboard shortcut Control-V, like as in victory, for paste. And you can see it just puts it right on top of the other one, just slightly off to the side. So I'm going to use click, hold, and drag, and I'm going to move this over to the side so that it kind of matches up on the right-hand side. All right. So if I zoom out a little bit using the minus sign, there is my finished church bake sale flyer. And as usual, flyers, you may look at this and are like, oh, well, actually, I want the text box a little bit farther down. So I'm going to click, hold, and drag and move that down. And I want my WordArt to be a little bit bigger. So I'm going to click, hold, and drag and make that bigger and then move it back towards the middle. So flyers, there's just a lot of finagly stuff whenever you're creating a flyer because you'll look at it and you'll change something and now it affects every single thing that you put in there. So just to give you a heads up. All right, so the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to do another new document. So I'm going to do the keyboard shortcut Control-N for a new document again. And there we go, another blank document. I'm going to zoom out a little bit, zoom in so that we can see it a little bit better. There we go. Okay, so now we're going to talk about how to use tables. Tables are very handy for various different things. And the instance for this exercise that we're using right now is we're actually creating a sign up table so that people can sign up for things that they want to bring to a party. So we're going to go to the Insert tab and there's the Tables group and there is simply just Table right there. So if I click on Table, so you can actually tell it how many columns and how many rows you want in here. However, notice the largest size table that I could have is 10 columns and 8 rows. If you want more than that, you're going to have to click on this draw table. No, sorry, I apologize. You're going to have to click on insert table, and then you can choose, oh, I want 15 columns and 25 rows, or 2 columns and 500 rows, or whatever it is you want, okay? So, but in this case, we are just going to keep it kind of simple, and we're going to do a 2x8 table. So once I get to that square, I just click on it, and it is inserted into our document. So the next thing that we have to do is actually enter our text. So give me a moment to type in our text, party sign up. If I want to move down to the cell below me, be careful that you don't press enter. Watch what happens when I press enter. You see what happened? It just made the cell itself larger. We don't want to do that. So I'm going to use backspace to get rid of that extra enter that I did. One way that you can do it is using tab. Tab will move it over to the right. If I do tab, it moves it over to the right. If I do tab again, it moves it down to the next line, and so on and so forth. I can use the arrow keys on my keyboard. So I'm using the down arrow, using the up arrow, using the right, using the left, so on and so forth, okay? Or you can just click in a cell and you can start typing. I'm going to zoom in a little bit more. There we go. So let me type in the rest of my sign up sheet. So I'm going to do name, because I want their name. And then this is what they are signing up for. So decorations, and I'm just using the down arrow key to get down to the next line. All right. So now that I have this all in here, let's talk about how to insert rows or columns. So what I want to do is in the Table Tools Layout contextual tab right here. Remember, contextual tabs are tabs that weren't here before until you clicked on something or inserted something that it applies to. So for example, if I click off to the side, notice those 2 tabs are now gone. View is the last tab. If I go back and click on the column again, or if I click anywhere on this table, now we have the contextual tabs back because they apply to a table, okay? So I'm going to click on the Layout tab. And in this case, I want to insert a column to the right of dish/task. This is one of those times, especially in Word, that you want to be very careful about where your cursor is. So my flashing cursor is in the cell that says dessert, and I want to insert something to the right over here. So it all goes based off of wherever your cursor is. So I want to choose this insert right. And now you can see I have an additional column to the right of where I was, because I was in the dessert column right there, okay? So I'm going to type in comments so people can type any comments, like what specifically they're bringing for dessert or drinks or etc. Okay? And it works the same way for inserting rows. So let's say that I wanted a row between hamburgers and chips. So I could either click on hamburgers and insert below. I could click on chips and insert above. So you can do it either way. You just have to, once again, make sure you are aware of where your cursor is. So let's do hamburgers and insert below. And now you can see I have a new row that was not there before. So I'm going to type in here brats, because it's Wisconsin. What kind of party would we have without brats? Okay. All right. So now that we have all of the text in the kind of order, etc., that we want, now is the time that we want to format our table, and basically at this point kind of make it prettier is essentially what we're doing. So the first thing we're going to do is merge our cells. Typically you merge cells with a table when it's the title. So an example of that would be this party sign up right here. So I'm going to select this entire row, and I just started over here on the right hand side, and I did click, hold, and drag until this entire row, this first row, was selected. So I'm going to go to the merge group right here and click on merge cells. Okay, notice these lines have disappeared. So what used to be 3 individual cells is now just one big cell. So typically you do that with things that are the title. Okay, so now I want to make some changes to the font. So I'm going to go to the Home tab, and in the font group, I want to change the size. Right now is set to 11. Let's make it 18 instead. And remember, you have to have it highlighted in order to make these changes. I'm going to make it bold, so click on the B. And I want to make it centered. So in the paragraph group, I'm going to click on center right there, that set of dashed lines. There we go. So that is our title. So you can see when you do merge, and especially center as well, it really shows up that this is the title of whatever the table is. All right, let's do some more formatting to the second row right here. So I'm going to do click, hold, and drag to select this second row. And I'm going to make changes. Let's do the font size to 14, so just slightly smaller than the actual title. And instead of bold, let's do italics. So click on the I for italics. Here we go. Okay. All right. Now what I want to do is I want to make changes to everything in here. Specifically, I'm going to be changing the font. So I want to select all of these cells, everything. An easy way to do that with this table is by clicking on this table move handle up here at the top left corner. If I click on it once, there we go. See how the entire thing is selected? So in here, right now, the default font is set to Calibri in the font group. I'm going to click on there and I'm going to choose Arial instead, just for fun. Maybe I like Arial more than Calibri, who knows? All right. And then the last thing I'm going to do as far as formatting the font is changing the paragraph and line spacing. So in the paragraph group, I'm going to click on line and paragraph spacing right here. And I'm going to choose 3.0. See how the difference in space right there? So if I have 1.0, that's like hardly any space. You got to imagine if this is printed that, you know, you have to have space enough for people to write in there, right? So we're going to choose 3.0. So it gives people a lot of space in order to write whatever they need to write in there. I'm going to zoom out a little bit. There we go. Okay. All right. So there is that. So the last thing that we're going to do with our table is add borders / shading. So we're going to go to the design contextual tab right here. And in this table styles group, you can see there's already kind of different styles of tables of different designs that they have. If I click on this more arrow, it's going to give me additional choices. So you can choose kind of, they have different colors like black, blue, and kind of orange, gray, yellow, a different shade of blue, green. So, and they have it in different kind of styles as well. So you can choose whichever one that you like. Let's say I like this very first blue one right here. If I click on it, and there we go. It very quickly applies all of these changes, which is super awesome and gives you, basically allows you to make all of these changes super quickly, which is great. All right, so the last thing that we're gonna do is add a border. So what I wanna do is change the border styles first. If I click on border styles, it gives me, once again, those kind of different sets of colors, and it's basically like a thickness thing. So if I wanted it to be kind of thinner, if I wanted it to be kind of medium thickness, and if I wanted to do like a double border. So let's say I wanted to do that fancy double border in black. So if I click on that one, notice how my cursor has changed into this little kind of calligraphy pen, little pointed pen right there. What's kind of cool is that I can actually click on any single border right now and it'll change it. So like, let's say I wanted a border above salads. If I click on this line, boop, there it is. If I click to the left of salads, does that one. If I click underneath salads, if I click to the right of salads. So you can do every single one individually, or if you want just kind of a random selection of ones, like, oh, I want dessert outlined as well. And I click on those, there we go. Okay, so you can do it that way if you so wish, but that seems kind of tedious. Instead, what you might want to do is choose borders. So if I click on the down arrow and borders, it gives me choices such as bottom border, top border, left, right, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of times you're probably going to choose all borders. Oh, I apologize. Because I clicked on individual ones, I have to select this entire thing again. There we go. In order to apply it to everything. So if I do all borders now, there we go. You can see it's applied to every single cell. So now every single cell has that double black line. If you don't like that, you can do undo and you can change it to something else. Maybe you just want the outside border. So it's just the outside of your table. So you can change it to be whatever you like, okay? All right, so for the last exercise, we're gonna use another pre-created document that I have made. It's a house buying to-do list. So I'm gonna go ahead and open that. I have it saved to the flash drive. So I'm gonna go to File and Open. and choose browse. And I'm going to go to my flash drive right here. And here it is, house buying to-do list. Click on open. There we go. Okay. So the first thing that we're going to do is adding bullets. So you can do bullets just right off the bat. So if you wanted to, before you even start typing, if you know that you want this to be bullets, you would click on the little bullet symbol, and then it would pop in a little bullet, like a black circle or whatever style that you want. And then you can start typing and it would be a bullet and you don't have to worry about it. So the way that we're doing bullets right now is we want bullets after the fact. So we typed everything in and then we're like, oh, actually this would probably look better if there were bullets. So what we're going to do is, this is the heading. The first heading is making an offer and negotiating the close. So what we need to do is select all of the sentences underneath there, which is these kind of 8 different sentences. So I just did click, hold, and drag to select them. I'm going to go to the bullets in the paragraph group, and I'm going to click on the down arrow, and look, I can choose any type of bullet in here. So it has various types of bullets. Let's say I'm just going to go with the black circle. If I click on there, and there we go, you can see it's applied all of the bullets there. If you wanted an additional bullet, like let's say I needed to type in an extra sentence, I would click at the end, press enter, and it gives me another bullet, and then I can type in whatever I want to type in. Okay. In this case, I don't, so I'm just going to use backspace, get rid of it. There we go. All right, so I'm going to do the next thing for getting a mortgage. I'm going to do the same exact thing. So I'm going to do click, hold, and drag to select the sentences that I want to have bullets. I'm going to go to the bullets again and click on the down arrow, and I'm going to choose, let's do different ones. Let's do the circle, the white circle. There we go. I'm going to do the same thing for all of these different headings. There we go. And choose different bullets for each one just to make it fancy looking. Let's do these guys. My favorite type of bullet is the check mark right there. Boom. It's kind of a dorky thing to have a favorite of, but I do. What are you going to do? Okay. All right, so if I click out to the side, there are my bullets, okay? And you can always, if you decide that you don't like these, you can always click on them. If you click on the actual bullet, it selects the bullets, and then you can change it to be whatever you want. Let's say I wanted these kind of arrows instead, okay? So you can definitely change things after the fact for sure. So that is bullets. Now we're gonna do numbers. And for the numbers, we're gonna do these headings as numbers. So what I want to do is select this title. So I can do click, hold, and drag, or I could triple click and it would select this entire title right here. And I'm going to go in the paragraph group. We're going to go to this numbers. Okay. And you can choose, there are different types of numbering that you could do. So you could do one with a period, one with a parentheses, Roman numerals, capital A's, you know, etc. So you can choose whichever you want. I'm just going to do kind of the most basic one, which is the 1 period, 2 period, so on. Okay. Notice how though, when I did that, it changed the 1 and it moved it over, and now it's lined up with these bullets. And really that's not what I want to do. I want the bullets to be underneath my heading, not kind of lined up in the same level, basically. So what I need to do is go to this paragraph group right here, and we have these arrows pointing left and right. The first one is to decrease the indent, and the next one to the right is to increase the indent. And just the visual cue is whichever way the arrow is pointing is the way that your bullet or number is going to go. So I'm going to choose decrease, and you can see, there we go, it moved it over to the side. So now 1 is more prominent, and then the bullets are underneath that as like a sub level. Okay. So now that I did that, I'm going to select my next heading and do the same thing. We'll click on the numbers, and you can see it actually remembers. So it knows that I did 1 right here, and it remembers it. So it's doing 2, and it's lined up. 1 and 2 are lined up. So I don't have to do that decrease indent again. If you ever need to kind of mess with things a little bit more, if you click on the number, or if you click on the bullet, if you're changing bullets, you know, either way. But if you right click on it, it gives you additional choices. And especially this restart at 1 or continue numbering or set numbering value, those things are very helpful. So let's say for some reason you want it to be set at a different number. You want this one to be number 7 instead. So you do set numbering value and you would change it to 7 and click OK. And there we go. So it goes from 1 to 7. So you can force it to do different things in here. It's not super common that you would do that, but it is helpful to kind of know. So you would click on whichever bullets that you want to change or number that you want to change and right click and then use these kind of middle options basically. Okay. All right, I'm going to go down and finish doing the rest of my headings. So I want that one to be number 3. If I click, hold, and drag and select this one, it'll be 4 and so on. And I think that is the last one, number 6. Yes, it is. Okay. All right, so I have numbers and then I have my bullet points underneath each of those numbers. All righty. All right, so the next thing that we're going to do is add columns. It is fairly simple to add columns to our actual document. So if you're trying to add columns to the entire thing, what I'm going to do is use the keyboard shortcut Control-A to select all of it. And then I'm going to go to the Layout tab right here. And in the Page Setup group, I'm going to click on Columns, and you can choose. Do you want 2, 3 columns, 3 columns, left? And you can see left has like a skinnier column and then a wider column. And then right has a wider column and then a skinnier column. So you can choose whichever of these, or you could do 4 columns if you wanted under the more columns, whatever you want to do. So the most common one that you're going to do though is 2. So I'm going to click on 2. And notice, so we have number 1, and here's all of my bullets, number 2 and my little white circle bullets, and it goes up to here. Number 3 and my black square bullets, and then number 4, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So this used to be on 3 pages, and now it is 2 pages. Okay, so you can see it kind of smush things a bit together, which is what we wanted. The only time that it is a little bit weird is if you only want a certain section to have columns. So if I do undo, so let's say that I only wanted number 1 and number 2 to have columns, but not number 3. So you want to select whatever you have typed, and then you want to choose your columns. So let's do 2 columns. So you can see here's number 1 and here's number 2, and then number 3 and so on don't have columns. Okay. So it's just whatever way that you choose. So that's only when it gets a little bit more complicated, is you only want part of the document to have columns, then you would need to select the text for just that part that you wanted. Okay, I'm going to go back to having it for everything. There we go. Okay. All right, so that is the columns. So the last thing we're going to talk about are the header/footer as well as page numbers. So to insert a header in here, so the header is this top section on your piece of paper, and your footer is obviously the bottom section on your piece of paper. So we are going to the Insert tab. I don't know why header and footer are an insert. I never think of it in there. I think of like layout would make more sense or whatever, but it's not. But there's an entire section, an entire group that's just for header and footer. So let's say I wanted a header. So I'm going to click on header. And it gives us all of these fancy different choices that we can choose. See, different colored bands, etc., different types. So I'm just going to do kind of not the simplest one, but a simpler one. I'm going to choose banded right here. And you can see it puts this blue band all the way across the top right there. So where it says document title, I'm going to click on there. And now I can change that to being whatever I want. Choose house buying to-do list, because that's what it is. Okay. So once you have the text in there that you want, and you can always go to home and you can format that font any way that you want to format it. I'm going to click on this close header and footer, and you can see it kind of highlights it light blue, because that's giving you a visual cue that that is the header. Okay, but if I scroll down, there we go, top of page 2, house buying to-do list. If I had 50 pages, now every single page would have this header in here, okay? All right, it gets more complicated if you want to only have like the first page have a header, or you want the first page to not have a header, but the rest of the pages to have a header. That's when it gets more complicated. I'm gonna choose edit header. that's when you have to mess around with these different options and maybe the navigation. So like the different first page or different odd and even pages. This link to previous, you might have to mess around with. So it can get complicated is all I'm saying. So we're just going to keep it kind of as simple as that at the moment. So I'm going to close out of this again. The last thing that we're going to do is insert page numbers. So I'm going to go to the insert tab again, and I'm going to choose page number. So here's the thing. I don't want to do top of page right now, because if I do top of page, it's actually going to get rid of my header, because you can only have one at a time. So if I have a header in here, I can't have page numbers in here as well at the same time. If I have a footer, I can't have page numbers as well at the same time, or vice versa. It basically wants to get rid of one in order to put the other, okay? There is a way that you can kind of manipulate it to do that. You can go into the header, let's see, the header or footer, and just click wherever you want your page numbers. And then when you do the page number, you would do current position instead. It will get rid of it. Let me just show it to you just so that it reinforces this. So if I do top of page, I have my header and now it's gone. See, let me do that again. So I have my header right here. I go to the insert tab and choose page number, and I do top of page, and I do, let's say I'm doing it over to the left. There's nothing over to the left, right? No, it totally gets rid of it. And if I scroll down, it's gotten rid of it for the top of page 2 as well, which is not what I want. So that's what I was talking about. You just have to be careful with that kind of stuff. So instead, because we don't have anything in the footer right now, that seems a logical place. Let's put the page number. So I'm going to do bottom of page, and it's got all these different types that you can do right here. See, I can do large numbers, I can do tabs, I can do the tildes, dog ear, ooh, so fancy. The one that I like the most is the page 1 of, etc. So you can do it on the left, you could do it centered, you can do it on the right. I usually do it on the right because why not? So I'm going to click on this page 1 of 1. Okay, and it took me to the bottom right here. So I'm at the footer. So I have page 1 of 2, and down here, page 2 of 2. There you go. Okay. And you can kind of manipulate the numbers in here a little bit as well, but it gets kind of complicated, not gonna lie. So it's kind of that same thing. When you're trying to force it to do something that it doesn't normally want to do, that's when it gets a bit trickier, okay? So I'm gonna click on the close for header and footer. So I have my header, the house buying to-do list, and I have my page numbers, page 1 of 2. There's the header again, and page 2 of 2, okay? Okay, so that was the intermediate Microsoft Office Word video. I hope that you learned a couple additional things that you might not have known before. If you have any questions, feel free to email me at the library's general email, which is library@oakcreekwi.org. I hope to see you for the next video, which will be the intermediate Microsoft Office, specifically covering Excel. Have a good day.